Tristan, what do you see as the biggest challenge and the biggest opportunities confronting the tanker industry?
We see the greenhouse gas emission response as one of the biggest challenges and opportunities. It's a mixture of the two things. And that's because it presents such an important change, both into the types of cargoes that ships will be carrying in the future, but also how those ships will be powered, and how shipping will inevitably change to an alternative fuel mix, because all sectors are moving away from fossil fuels. And that presents owners with the opportunity to start thinking ahead and to see what investment decisions might help them navigate that period of change, but also financiers to make more informed decisions in order to see where they should be investing and which owners they should be working with based on the strategies that they're making in order to fit with that inevitable future.
You say that there's an inevitable change in the fuel mix. What is that inevitable change?
So this is where we get a bit glib by saying we know it's got to change because we know it can't be fossil fuel in the future. The one thing that it's very obvious to see is that complying with the Paris Agreement means moving from fossils to an alternative. The problem is that there is a lot of uncertainty about what that alternative is. In some cases it may be electrification, and there's already very significant uptake of electrification batteries and hybrid as being solutions applied to ships. In other cases it might be an alternative liquid or gaseous fuel, and we immediately discount LNG as being anything more than a short-term transition fuel, because liquid natural gas is just another fossil fuel. So it doesn't make sense to see that as a major panacea for solving shipping's emissions challenges. But that moves you on to some of the synthetic and sustainable biofuels. And we spend a lot of time testing whether we think hydrogen could be a realistic alternative, ammonia, derivatives of hydrogen and ammonia that could be more convenient ways of storing the fuel when it's on board the ship. And alternatively, these sustainable biofuels which have been produced responsibly and with attention paid to the upstream emissions and the indirect emissions consequences of their production.
Very last one. In the open discussion that followed your presentation, the chairman was really pushing you on IMO.
Yes, there's a very contentious issue at the moment as to whether we should see regions adopting unilateral regulation or focusing on the IMO. In our theoretical world that we can adopt sometimes, it's clear that there has to be global solutions. That's the only way for a sector like shipping to make progress on environmental effectiveness. The ships are moving so internationally, they're owned internationally, they're flagged internationally, and all of that is a very fluid structure. So trying to do something too regional can be limiting in the extent that you can reduce CO2 emissions. The flip side of that is that IMO makes regulation through multilateral negotiation, and to achieve consensus on that takes a very long period of time. So is there something that you could do regionally in the short term? We think that shouldn't be discounted, and we should look at these two approaches, unilateralism or plurilateralism, which is when a group of countries might try and act together slightly ahead of the rest of the global regulation. Could be constructive. It could give us useful information about what types of measures work, what doesn't work, help to develop local niches of innovation and pilots that are so desperately needed to find the technological solutions that are required. Because we know for certain that if we wait too long, that we're going to end up getting very much behind the curve, which means that the sector and the globe in general will have to undertake a much more dramatic rate of decarbonisation. If we push everything to the 2020s and the 2030s, we make the problem harder to solve, which makes it more painful for industry as well as populations.